The NBA Cup keeps delivering exciting outcomes and uncovering weaknesses for teams like the New York Knicks. Jimmy Butler responds to trade rumors, and we're talking about practice, man. Kawhi returns to the Clippers practice while LeBron James is nowhere to be found. That's all ahead today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being an everydayer with Locked On NBA. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets, and your shot clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior writer for the Action Network. We've got Matt Moore, and from the Locked On Bulls podcast, we have Hayes. Before we get into anything, I just want to thank Matt and Hayes for bearing the brunt of yesterday's news without me. I appreciate it. You guys did a fantastic job, but I'm glad to be back.
Hey, we're glad to have you back, Doug. We're glad that you can learn whatever TikTok dances you picked up while you're gone.
Thank you. And really, I just said that so that I could get that response. So I appreciate Matt for obliging me there. All right, let's talk about night 2 of the NBA Cup rounds. It had a tough follow-up back to night 1, but it did not disappoint. The Hawks upset the Knicks with a Trae Young explosion in the third quarter and defense that gave Jalen Brunson fits all night. Atlanta seems to be fully in gear with young talent exceeding expectations and sights set more on just an NBA Cup run. You've got Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson. My question for you, we'll start with Matt. Who is most responsible for this big Hawks turnaround?
Look, the Great Barrier Thief clamped Jalen Brunson last night, and it was amazing. Like, I have not seen a guy shut down a player of Brunson's caliber like that in a big spot in some time. It was super impressive. But I will say, I really think it's Jalen Johnson. So I wasn't just watching the performance that Jalen had in terms of points, rebounds, assists, etc. Watch how he communicates with his teammates. Watch how he's huddling them. Watch, he had a huge play, converted a great transition opportunity for a dunk. Knicks call timeout, and Jalen's not preening at half court. He is going to the huddle, talking to his teammates about what they need to do. Jalen Johnson is serious about his business. I really think this kid might be the best and most important player on the Hawks.
I cannot agree more with you. I'm glad you said that it was going to be Jalen Johnson, because if you didn't say it, I was going to. The game that he had yesterday, and just in watching, the stat sheet is amazing in of itself. Almost a triple-double from Jalen Johnson, plus minus of plus 16. The stat sheet supports the eye test, but when you watch this kid play the game of basketball, and I know this isn't something that's quantifiable, but he has the it factor. He just gets it. And I love watching Jalen Johnson play basketball. But on top of that, Dyson Daniels is just defensively. I know he didn't score a lot. He didn't even have the steal numbers that he had. This team in the Atlanta Hawks has such a good young crop of talent that I can't wait to see what they're going to be in a few years from now.
Well, I'll stand up for the obvious name in Trae Young. 22 points, 11 assists in this game, and I thought he really controlled the game from the perspective of, okay, I'm going to slice and dice you in the third, and then when your defense adjusts to me, then I'm going to hit you with a ton. And that's actually what was on the minds of Locked On Knicks, a tough loss for a team that seemed to be getting right at the right time. Let's go to Locked On Knicks for their take on the second half implosion in New York.
Anthony Towns. He had the most intensity, I think, of anyone in this game. And I think that was the main thing that stood out. And that's what made it, I think, especially evident when he was sitting, in that the fact that the Knicks just seemed to lose their edge. And they kind of just shot themselves in the foot by this really asinine defensive strategy of just like, they were like, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at Trae Young and just pretend nobody else on the floor exists. And like, they kept doing that. And then they gave up like 6 backdoor dunks in a row and basically just waved the white flag at that point. I mean, it was basically over.
Hayes, what should the Knicks take away from this loss? What should they learn? How do they improve moving forward?
Execution, like the execution down the stretch of this game was just piss poor for the New York Knicks, and they got to play with more pride. You were at home You got embarrassed in a lot of cases. Like Trae Young owned you in your own building. Like that's bad. But to me, Jalen Brunson, just when Jalen Brunson's off, and Karl Anthony Towns has been able to help them a little bit, but when Jalen Brunson does not have an offensive explosion, this team is just it's almost like they don't know what to do. They don't know how to counteract that. And you got too much talent on this team, I think, for you just not to know how to do. Maybe not saying anything is a bit rough, but you got to learn how to when teams adjust to Jalen and they take him out the game. You have so much depth here. Other players need to step up, and that doesn't always happen at the level it needs to for the New York Knicks to win games. Like when Jalen Brunson gets clamped up, like Matt pointed out.
I got a little bit of a different perspective. I don't think this game was about execution. I don't think it was about Trae Young. I thought it was about physicality. This Knicks team has always been so tough under Tibbs. Think about all the offensive rebounds that they just killed the Sixers with last year in the playoffs. The Hawks destroyed them on the offensive glass. And the Knicks really looked in that second half bothered by how physical the Atlanta Hawks played with them. That is deeply concerning. This Knicks team is going to have to find a new identity. And I'm sorry, but I don't think it's going to be as good as last year's. They might look better in the numbers, but last night was very revealing to me for how they struggled when a team got up and got into them physically. They really melted away.
Well, let's move to the second game. If Hawks-Knicks was a physical game, Warriors-Rockets was a wrestling match. Golden State seemed poised to overcome the Rockets' vaunted point-of-attack defense, but an off-ball foul with just seconds remaining gave the Rockets free throws, a lead, and the win. Steve Kerr, after the game, irate about the call. What say Locked On Warriors?
I thought bad call. You cannot let the stripes determine a game like that. It was the right call. He went over the back in a game that was so physical. You hate to see how that ends, but the Warriors were up 1 with 3 seconds left. They called a foul, 2 free throws knocked in, and Golden State really never gets off a clean look.
I was frustrated with Steph Curry. I did not think he was good in the clutch time tonight. Steph is regularly the leader of this team, but I just don't think he was great. Draymond Green, I don't think was great in those last couple of minutes of the fourth quarter. You don't need to go for a three-point look when you're down by 1, and the three ball wasn't falling for the Dubs throughout this game, and it was just a frustrating loss.
Okay, Matt, biggest factor in Golden State's loss or Houston's win, however you want to look at it, officiating, Houston's defensive game plan, or Golden State's continued issues in the crunch time?
Golden State's not on the same page. I don't want to keep talking about this because we've talked about it so much, but this is what I've been saying is as good as they were to start the season, they are not on the same page, and you can tell. And like, there's just this real disconnect, I think, between the young guys and the old guys, and the old guys keep looking for that familiarity. And you know what this feels a lot like, Hayes, is it feels like Steph and Draymond are like, wait, where's Clay? Because Clay would help facilitate some of this, and they just don't know. It's not about the talent or making shots. It's about knowing what to do, how to move, how to navigate the offense. They didn't score for like 3 minutes to close this game. That's a disaster for a team with Steph Curry. I think this Golden State offense, it may not be broken, but it is badly sprained.
I give a little bit more credit to the Houston Rockets defense. I mean, they did have a 14-point lead at one point in this game. If it wasn't for the third quarter by the Golden State Warriors, which they scored 32-24, I mean, the Golden State Warriors may not have even been in the position to make this game interesting down the stretch. So yeah, I agree with you that this is a team that doesn't necessarily have the same rhythm that we've come accustomed to seeing from the Warriors, but this Houston Rockets defense is legit, and the momentum builds steadily for them once they get into that. And Alperen Sengun in this game, just 26 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals in this game. He was all over the court in this game, and the fact that I also look at this as Ime Udoka coached a very good game today. Like I said, you take away that stretch by the Golden State Warriors where they made this interesting and closed that gap, I would be talking about how well Udoka was prepared for what the Golden State Warriors were going to attempt to do in this game.
And I think if they keep winning like this, then we might have to talk about Udoka for Coach of the Year. He could get into that conversation very easily. And on the Warriors side, you know, maybe they are looking for that Clay. Maybe they're looking for a Jimmy Butler. We're going to talk about that coming up. More stuff around the Jimmy Butler rumors. Plus, now that we have the final 4 teams in the NBA Cup, I'll ask Matt and Hayes what final they would like to most see and why. That's all ahead on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like the rush of watching an NBA game live, the roar of the crowd, the squeak of the sneakers, the radical colors of the NBA Cup courts. Whether you're catching your favorite team this season or grabbing tickets for a rival matchup, Game Time makes it easier than ever to get great seats with Game Time Picks. The app curates the best deals so you're not stuck scrolling through endless ticket options. Plus, the app lets you preview panoramic seat views before buying. And the all-in pricing feature, if you toggle it on, means no hidden fees at checkout. And Game Time has your back. Their lowest price guarantee ensures you always get the best price. They'll even credit you 110% of the difference if you find a better deal. Plus, their ticket coverage includes job loss assurance and event cancellation protection. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. More Locked On NBA ahead. Okay, Matt Hayes, we know the final four teams now. Which final do you want to see most and why? And I'm not asking this from like a cynical, what does the NBA need for entertainment purposes place? Just which final would most satisfy your basketball-addled mind? Hayes, we'll start with you.
Rockets Bucks. I'm a defense guy. I think that would be interesting, matchup of whose defense can stop who. And then I also think for the Rockets, I love the Rockets as a young team. And I think if you get this young team that can win an NBA Cup, don't know what that means for them in the playoffs and things like that. But like, this is just a fun Rockets team. So I'll say Rockets Bucks, mainly because I just don't want to see Trae Young in the NBA Cup either. So am I a hater? Yeah.
Okay, Matt.
Just straight up a hater. I try and hide mine. Hayes is like, nope, that's me. All right, so I was gonna say Rockets Bucks because I love the idea of Tari Eason trying to figure out a way to defend Giannis, but I'll go with Thunder Bucks here. Look, that's the best matchup for the NBA. Like Doug did not want us to answer, but I will also say, look, that's a potential finals matchup. It's an outside finals matchup with how the Bucks have kind of been this season, but it's on the table, and it's two of the best players in the league. These are two very serious MVP candidates going up against each other, and I would love to see how OKC, Mark Dagnall's plan against Giannis and Dame, that kind of matchup. Dame in these under the brightest lights, you want to see that again. I'll go with Bucks Thunder, but I do think that Bucks, either way, as long as the Bucks win, I think we're going to get a great Cup Finals. Sorry, Hawks.
I want Bucks Thunder too, and I want Giannis to win MVP because I think in our MVP discussions, whether it be the NBA MVP or the Cup, you guys keep putting him number 2. So I just want to see him get it and then come back and have a conversation about it.
I have a 14-1 ticket on him at FanDuel, so I too would like him to win Cup MVP, Doug.
Okay, the NBA may have put the spotlight on the NBA Cup this week, but the rest of the league did not stop spinning, and the axis of that spin seems to still be Jimmy Butler. In the latest from Locked On Heat, they talk who's really in control of the future for Butler and the Miami Heat.
I think the ball kind of seems squarely in Pat Riley in the front office's court. Like they have control over the situation. I think this is different than what we saw from him in Philadelphia, different from we saw him in Chicago or Minnesota. This is not a player trying to force his way out. If he had his druthers, I think his preference would be to get paid a hell of a lot of money, stay in Miami, keep his family here, and enjoy the life that he's been living over the past 6 seasons. And I don't know that that's realistic. And so I think that's where the crux of the conflict is that he's not going to get all of those things. He doesn't get to decide that. And so it's up to Riley to kind of make that choice and determine, look, we tried to negotiate something with your agent, Bernie Lee. You want the max? We're not giving you the max.
Okay, so we had 3 teams that have been linked to Butler initially. Warriors, Mavs, Rockets, with a 4th team popping up that ruffled some feathers, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Matt, here's my question. Does anyone really want Jimmy Butler, or is this, as Locked On Heat I think was alluding to there, more about getting the best deal out of an eventual Miami extension? Yeah,
so Mark Stein kind of reported on this too in his Substack that those teams it's not very certain that they're going to go for him. We talked about this. The Rockets have zero reason to do this. Like, I would tell you that I would be most surprised by the Rockets changing course and doing this. I think the Rockets are overstating how much they're like, nope, we're not going to do anything. We love this core. No major moves from us. I don't buy that. But I don't think that Jimmy Butler is the guy that they're looking at, because I think they realize that the window is very open and they want to have like a 5-year window here. the Mavericks, I think, are probably the most likely situation here, but it's very difficult with where their contracts are at. And Golden State, I just don't know if they're going to eventually be like, yeah, no, we really just we're willing to be terrible for 5 years for as long as we do this. I will say, everyone thinks they have leverage over Jimmy Butler until he starts acting up. Miami keeps thinking that they have all this leverage. They did this with Dame too. And I'm just telling you, if Jimmy Butler starts acting up there, you are not going to feel like it's very much the Bane and Dark Knight thing. Do you feel like you're in charge? That's what it's going to feel like if Jimmy starts making some noise.
I was born here.
Was born in it. The Jimmy Butler, this whole nonsense is just crazy. Who controls it? One man, Pat Riley. That's it. I think Pat Riley makes the decision. He decides to finally pull the trigger on something. That's it. If Pat Riley wants to move Jimmy Butler will get moved. Anything other than that, if he wants to sign Jimmy Butler will re-sign there. I think it just comes down to what Pat Riley really does want to do. And I don't even know if Pat Riley knows what he wants to do. I know what he should do is what I think he should do, but I don't know if he's going to do it because it's Pat Riley. And as long as Pat Riley has an opportunity or a chance, feels like he has a chance, I just don't see major changes happening. He may be listening to deals. I just don't think they'll get done.
Okay, I mentioned a fourth team. ESPN's Shams Charania tweeted that Jimmy Butler's agent, Bernie Lee, had indicated to people in NBA circles that Butler would be open to joining the Suns, which led Lee to respond with, in part, this quote, "All right, listen, I gave you a pass yesterday because I was busy, but if you don't stop putting my name on your complete and utter made-up bleep, because you know you normally aren't worth my time to acknowledge." That was a tweet in reply to Shams' tweet. Shams said he 1,000%, not 100%, 1,000% stands behind his reporting. Matt, what the heck's going on here?
So for me, I think my read on this is that Jimmy at media day or at media availability the other day seemed pretty annoyed. This was yesterday. He seemed pretty bothered by this entire thing. And he was doing the thing I hate, which is like, you guys are just going to make up stuff anyway. I think that Butler, look, this is a negotiation, right? Butler still wants the extension and he's not getting it. And so Butler's camp is like, let's put out some pressure. But then when that blows back on Butler, now all of a sudden Butler's upset. I don't know who's right, who's wrong, who's got what sources here, but I will tell you that the fact that this is all coming from Jimmy's side is very, that's pretty narrow. This isn't rival executives saying, oh yeah, this team is interested to mess with that team. This is coming from a very direct player location. And if you notice, these are all teams with nice locations or locations he'd want to be in. We talked about this again. It's never about where Jimmy Butler's not I want to go to OKC, best team in the league, arguably. Mm-hmm. He's not saying that. I think that there's a lot of this. And the other thing I will say is, if you're in Phoenix, you're probably pretty annoyed about this kind of comment because it brings up, oh, you're going to trade for Jimmy Butler. And then your three guys are like, wait, am I getting traded? And you're like, leave us out of it. We didn't ask to be in this. It's a messy situation to try and unravel, Hayes.
Yeah, I mean, I love that Shams also stood up and that he stands by his reporting. I think that Bernie Lee's doing what he needs to do to protect his agent. I think there's two different things going on, kind of stepping back that are being mushed together. All right, the Miami Heat could be open to listening to offers, which, okay, cool. I mean, I think every team in the NBA should listen to a lot of offers in situations, especially when a player could be an expiring contract. Then on top of that, Jimmy Butler has a pending free agent. If you're trying to tell me that Jimmy Butler hasn't thought at least about a list of teams that he could be interested to go to, then he's stupid. I just hate to say that. If in the back of his mind he doesn't have a list of teams that could interest him in going to, knowing that he could be a free agent either at the end of this year or next year, and he hasn't started thinking about it, you're not going to sell me on that. So while Bernie Lee is getting all up in arms about it and defending his client, and I love that he came out and focused it on initially on basketball, saying that the point differential that the Miami Heat have when Jimmy Butler's on the court, comparing that to the championship Golden State Warriors, it's all great. He's doing what he needs to do to protect his client. But I just think that there are a lot of moving parts to this, that the reporting's all kind of mixing it together. And at the end of the day, this is what basketball is about. There's a whole sub-segment of basketball fans and NBA fans that this is what they live for, the drama. They talk about who's going to move. They don't care about the advanced analytics a lot. They care about who's moving, who's going where, and what trades can get done. And I think that Shams feeds that part of it. And, I love that he stood up and stood by his reporting as well.
One more thing. I'll just say this. Jimmy Butler's not going to decide who wins the NBA championship this year.
That's a fact.
He's not. Doesn't matter where he goes. He's not deciding who wins the title. He's not deciding who wins a conference. He's not making that much of a difference this year. It's just not.
I think people are wondering why all of this talk is starting now. I mean, we have some of the trade restrictions lifting on December 15th, so there's a little bit of that. But I also wonder if, like, nature abhors a vacuum, and with so few teams playing, there's just a lot of people just sitting around, with not a ton to do, not a lot of games to watch. I wonder if that plays a part in this as well. All right, well, we're not going to stop talking about the NBA and in terms of that vacuum that I just mentioned there, because a lot of teams have had time to rest, time to get healthy, and time to practice, and there were a few interesting practice storylines to get to. Plus, I want to know from Matt and Hayes, which player have they been most changed in terms of their opinion so far this season as we get ready to resume regular NBA programming? That's all coming up on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com. You're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. All right, let's talk about practice. And it was a Los Angeles Lakers practice that had everybody raising some eyebrows. LeBron James excused from that practice for a personal matter, just as trade rumors start to pop up about maybe LeBron James, the Warriors knocking on that door again. Here's Locked On Lakers on that suspicious timing.
His absence from practice, even if it's something completely and totally unrelated, especially at a time when, the report from Wendy comes out about the Warriors again, maybe looking to kick the tires on a LeBron deal. He knows how those types of things are going to be seen, and he knows people will talk. He has a no trade clause, and he has given no indication that he wants the Lakers to do anything but upgrade the roster they've got. Not that he wants to go anywhere. And the timing of this will be, I think, interpreted by many people as I often like to put it, passive-aggressive. If you wanted to read into this, you could read into this being the beginning point of LeBron messaging, hey, I wanted to stay, but ultimately the organization didn't make these types of moves, and now you are forcing me to go somewhere else where I have a better chance of winning a championship.
Okay, Hayes, is this subtle messaging to the Lakers, or are we in danger of reading too much into this absence?
I go back and forth on this. I think we're probably reading a little bit too much into it. Now, I always adapt, like where there's some smoke, there's some fire, and leading into the trade talk and things like that, maybe there is a little bit of smoke. But I think right now LeBron's old, and what he's able to do is great. Like, so if he's taking a little bit of time away and it's been approved by the team, it may be because he just needs some rest. Because guess what? He's playing great, and what he's doing at his age has been something that we've never really seen done before. So I'm going to lead towards right now we're probably making a little bit too much of it. That's just, it could change. That's where I'm leading right now.
Who knows, man? I mean, I continue to be boggled by this, where it's like, oh, is he sending a message? Well, he could have sent a message this summer. He had all the leverage, and here's what he got. He got his son drafted. That's what he got. And he got the money. Like, he continues to give them all of the leeway in the entire world. I've talked about this a lot. This bugs the crap out of me, that LeBron held his contract situation over the Cavs, the Heat, and the Cavs again to put pressure on them. And with the Lakers, who have failed him over and over and over again outside of the bubble run, he has just been like, nope, totally, we just want to be here. Just glad to be a Laker. Such a proud legacy. It's ridiculous. And honestly, this is the bet that he made. And he's going to go out this is how he's going to go out. Being a 40-year-old, trying to drag a team up and down, probably going to make a play-in, might make the playoffs, go out in the first round. Could have been different, but this is the bet that he chose.
Kawhi Leonard returned to practice on Tuesday for the Clippers, and it appears like he's nearing a return. Here's Locked On Clippers for what that could mean for the team.
We are looking at a guy that's 7 months removed from having that surgery back in May. So I'm not going to say it's totally unexpected. And when you look at the schedule, it kind of starts to lead you to believe that this would be the targeted landing spot for Kawhi coming back. These next couple of weeks, Dave McMenamin from ESPN came out and said as much. Basically, if there's no setback, he expects to be playing within the next couple of weeks for this Clippers team. For I know a lot of his teammates just seeing him there boost morale. It's big for Clipper Nation. It makes you feel like, wait a second, the championship expectations aren't done yet just because Paul George is gone. If Kawhi can get healthy with how good this team has been so far this season, they can do more than just make some noise in the playoffs. They can be a real threat in the West.
Can they be a real threat in the West, or will Kawhi's return negatively impact the progress made by key Clippers role players like Norm Powell and Ivica Zubac? Matt, that question to you.
Yeah, no, I think it hurts more than it helps. Look, Kawhi's awesome. He's going to do what he does. He's going to come in, he's going to hit isolation jumpers, and he's going to look really great. And it's going to be like, oh man, what about the Clippers? And then he's going to go back out again. And then we're not going to know when he's going to be back. And it's going to be, when's Kawhi coming back? No idea. When's Kawhi coming back? No idea. And then he's going to come back. And then they're going to struggle when they have to get used to him again. And then he'll look good. And then they'll play better. This team's really good defensively. Kawhi's defense has actually kind of fallen off the last couple of years. If you notice, he had a really strong season last year, but it has slipped a little bit. They're 17th in offense. Will Kawhi help with that? Some, but Norman Powell's been great for them. You're taking possessions out of his hands. Kawhi doesn't fit really around Harden and Powell, which is how they've had success. You're changing the dynamic. I'm skeptical that this is going to mean anything, Hayes. Kawhi's great when he plays, but it's hard to figure out, build chemistry, rhythm, etc. with a guy like him, with the way he plays and as inconsistently as he does.
I actually talked about this a little bit, and Clippers fans got on my neck about it because, again, as I say all the time, Clippers fans deserve less. Yeah, they deserve less. But in this in this case, though, I do think that the Clippers should really look to explore to move Kawhi Leonard. And that's not because, we know what Kawhi can be when he's on the court, but, this team has shown they're 14-11 in the Western Conference with the way that they're playing. And to Matt's point, you're not going to play that same way with Kawhi on the court. Now, maybe it can make you better, but then again, how much long? It's because if somebody could say Kawhi Leonard's not going to miss another game this season, okay, cool. But there's no way that we can bet on that. And so because of that, I do think it's going to be, because you have to ramp and get everybody used to playing with him. And then by the time that happens, if it even does happen before he goes down again, he will eventually go down again. And you have to repeat the process all over again. At this point, with what they've built and what they have here, I think that Kawhi Leonard, the best thing that he can do for the Clippers is actually them to look to move him and get some pieces that help with this team with the way that they're playing a little bit more. I think it's that time. And that's not to knock Kawhi when he's on the court, because when he's on the court, he's great. But you just can't bet around. At this point, he's worse than Zion. You just can't bet on him being healthy.
Call Pat Riley right now. Right now.
Do you think that's doable? You think that's possible to make that kind of move?
I think Pat Riley would be interested. I think that they've got the young kind of pieces. I think if you can get Tyler Hero with how he's playing right now, and you have Tyler Hero as a combo guard next to Harden, I think that's really interesting. I think that's a really interesting move. If you can get one of the young guys, I think that's a very interesting move for the Los Angeles Clippers. That's all completely speculative. I don't know if they're going to, I would doubt it, because I would think the key is you have to get to Pat Riley without talking to Andy Ellsberg or Adam Simon there, because those guys are going to be like, no, we cannot trade for Kawhi Leonard. Are you insane? And Pat Riley would be like, yes, but.
All right, let's end the show on some reflection. We are more than a quarter way through the season, so I thought it would be a good time to ask both of you, which player so far has most changed your opinion of them to start this season? And Matt, we'll start with you.
A couple, Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels. So I thought Dyson was pretty good player. And instead he's one of the best defensive guys in the league. And he's showing a lot of passing chops. Jalen Johnson, I thought was oh yeah, he's a really solid guy. He could be maybe he could be a most improved candidate. Instead, I'm wait, is this guy maybe the actual most impactful player on the Hawks? Is this an actual star that we're seeing kind of evolve there. On the negative side, I'm really worried about Tyrese Halliburton, man. I got a lot of stock in Halliburton, and it is a rough time to have stock in Tyrese Halliburton. And it wasn't off of 6 months. It was off of a year and a half of him playing like one of the best offensive players in the league, and that's vanished. And I don't know what's going on, but I'm having to reevaluate a lot with Tyrese Halliburton if this is how he's going to look for the duration.
Positively for me, it's being Cam Thomas. I came into the season thinking that Cam Thomas was basically just a chucker. I thought that he was going to be somebody who he was going to get up tons of shots. He was going to have some big performances. But what we've seen from Cam Thomas is that he actually can pace himself. He can play within a scheme. He actually execute pretty well in clutch games in some scenarios. Like, I know he's been out. He hasn't played for about 2 weeks. But just how I viewed Cam Thomas is just a player that he's going to score. It's empty calorie stats. I view it differently now. And hearing that the Brooklyn Nets could be open to moving Cam Thomas, if they do, I do think that a team's going to get a heck of a player in Cam Thomas. And he's still extremely young at 23 years old, the way that he can still develop. So my view on Cam Thomas has changed a lot for the positive. And on the negative side of things, Bam Adebayo. I thought that Bam was going to be a player that you could build around with the Miami Heat, and that he was going to make it easy for them to move on from Jimmy Butler. And that's not to say Bam's bad, because he's not. But I just think now you see that Bam isn't necessarily that player you can build around. He's definitely a player that you can build something with, and you have the pieces around him. But I had, coming into the season, thought, Bam's going to take that next step, and he's going to be the guy that the Miami Heat build the next phase of their roster around. And I don't necessarily still feel that way. Everyone wants to know if their big prospect can shoot, but sometimes when you open that box and find out the answer, it's a little disheartening. I think a little bit of that is going on with Bam there. Okay, let us know what you think. Which player has changed your opinion most about them this season in the comments on YouTube. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, and that includes on YouTube, where you can see our bright, shining faces. Thanks so much to Matt Moore and Hayes, and thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Enjoy tonight's action, be kind to each other, and we're going to see you right back here to wrap up the week, preview some of these NBA Cup matches on Friday's edition of Locked On NBA.